Hi there. So a question went out about different ways that families do chores and allowances and how to incentivize and help kids have some structures. And this is something that Emily and I had talked a lot about. And Emily came up with this great idea, and then I turned it into a spreadsheet. So really, all of the design behind this was Emily, and I just made it complicated. So here's basically what our McQueen Home Chore and Allowance sheet looks like. And really, this is just a tool to do a couple things. One, provide a clear to-do list for the boys in our house to do their chores and their duties, and I'll talk about the distinction between those in a moment. The other thing it does is it helps us incentivize responsibility and ownership of these chores because of one of the things that we look at, which is attitude, and I'll describe more about that. The other thing it does is it facilitates and provides a time and a place for me as the dad to have a one-on-one conversation with each of the boys each week. Emily interacts with them all the time, and I interact with them all the time as well, but we felt like it was very important for them to have a one-on-one time with me. And so this becomes a very real reason for them to want to come and have those conversations. Luckily, they do like talking to me, and they come willingly beyond this. But so here's how it works. Essentially, we have three boys at home right now that are of age to do chores. We have some other boys that aren't quite there yet. And so what this first one looks like is Emily went through and for every day created a chore or a duty. So the difference between a chore and a duty is that duties, if you do them, you don't get docked, and a chore, if you do them, you get a point or they're a plus. So basically, duties you have to do or you're going to be penalized, and chores, if you do them, you get rewarded, and you can pick up more chores and things like that. So every week we have a different list or a set of duties and chores that a boy can do on a given day, and depending on their age, they have a different number. Alex being the oldest, he has the most. 4 different duties and 2 different chores, and those change. And then we have one other thing, which is the attitude, and this is a rating, and essentially Emily for every day goes through and gives each boy a rating on how they did for that day. And what she's looking at, and I can pull it up here, is did they do an A, B, C, or D job? And she has this posted on a piece of paper in the hallway, and so I should probably add it here in terms of how we decide what an A, B, C, or D is. But basically, it comes down to, did we have to remind you to do this chore or do your duties? Did you do it without complaining? Did you do it with a good attitude? Things like that. And if everything works out, they get an A. If they needed a bunch of reminding or it was a real struggle to help them to get this stuff done, then their attitude gets docked. All right, so that's basically how it works. So at the end of the week, they have a printout. And let me bring that up. So first of all, this is what it looks like to them. We print these out every week. And so each boy has a piece of paper, and we fold it in half. And there's a description of each chore on one side, and then there is the actual chore. And the boy marks it off, and then the mom marks it off and verifies that the thing was done. So at the end of the week, we go through and do an accounting and say, okay, yep, you did all your duties for a given day. Yep, you did those 2 chores, and we do some slight math here, and they actually really enjoy seeing this happen. So basically, if their duty total has no negatives, and their chore total is positive, and their average attitude is really good, they have a given rate. That rate does some math, and it comes up with a dollar amount, $10, for example. Don't judge me for the amount of allowance I give my boys. So that's how it works. And then for each week, we have a different template. So they rotate on a week basis, and Emily built all this up of what these things are, what it means to tidy a room and work on the shower or straighten shoes or whatever it might be. So that's basically how it works. So now all I have to do is when they come in on, say, Sunday night for their interview and allowance time, we go through and I've already entered in all the numbers. And this week was the week of Christmas, so we didn't have any chores, so they didn't get any allowance, and they were all fine with that. But on the 7th, we'll get together and I will tally up everything from what they've written down on the piece of paper, and then bring them in and we'll chat for a little bit about things and talk about how their week went, and really try to make that a time where we can give some positive encouragement and tell them how much we love them and how much, and this is just me usually giving this message, but let them know how much we love them, how much we appreciate them, what their strengths and what they're working on really well, and then give them the report. Now, recently, one of our boys didn't have the greatest week. He went from having about a $7 allowance to less than $2. But because we had this structure and because we could talk about what happened on those days, he was upset, but he wasn't upset at me for the fact that happened. Everything was real clear, and he took ownership of that. So I'm real excited to see what happens in this next week when we go through it. So that's the basic process. We print this out, they fill it out at the end of the week. We do a scoring on it. They get an amount that goes into their account, and then we start the whole thing off next week. As you can see, we're about 3 weeks into this, and it's working pretty well. So hope this has been helpful.